Welcome to the ISO Show, dispelling myths and sharing tips for success to improve your business with ISO standards, with your host, Mel Blackmore.
Hi, and welcome to the ISO Show. If you're ready to implement an environmental management system to help to raise your company's profile and also to reduce the damage to our planet, then you're in the right place. I'm your host, Mel Blackmore, founder of Blackmores and the ISOlogy Hub, and I've been helping businesses to create and build ISO systems for success over the past 15 years. If you're serious about creating a sustainable business, then it's time to put the strategy, systems and processes in place to make it happen. Join me each week for candid conversations about practical and profitable ways to introduce systems into your business to make a difference. Now, before we begin, if it's safe for you to do so, download our free ISO Standards Blueprint, because this is going to be so helpful in supporting you to plan, create and launch your environmental management system, or actually any management system for that matter, because it does cover all ISO standards. It'll just help you to get ready to not only to plan, create and implement, launch those systems, but also to help to get certified too. So let's dive into today's episode, which is all about looking at the resources that you'll need in order to be able to implement ISO 14001 and get certified. So let's go. So when you're planning to implement ISO 14001, or any ISO standard for that matter, you do need to consider what resources you've currently got in place and what you need for the project to be a success. And these resources can include time, which is the most valuable commodity, people, of course, it's not going to happen without people, finance, infrastructure, technology, and also in some cases your suppliers can be useful as a resource. Now, all of these can be really helpful, but they can also be a hindrance if you haven't got the right type of resources in place. So let's just break them down one by one then. So the first one I'd like to cover is time. So time is such a precious commodity. And realistically, based on our experience, the chances are you're also doing a day job as well as potentially project managing the implementation of an EMS. So we know that you're going to be juggling a lot of balls at the same time. But I think you need to appreciate that the EMS project that you are about to undertake is going to make a difference. So it's really important that if you're serious about this to try and carve out some time. So look at your diary and look at blocking out time each week over, say, the next 6 months in order to not just get this planned and started, but to be able to launch and fully implement your EMS. So the amount of time that you spend on the EMS is going to pay back in dividends once you've achieved certification. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're applying minimal effort and commitment, that's what you're going to get out of it at the end. So I know that may sound quite harsh, but it is a reality check. And we know that you're very busy, but you do need to carve out that time within your diary in order to be able to implement the standard. And you don't need time to create lengthy documents. You don't need to waste time on creating fancy charts, but what you do need to allow time for is to get right under the skin of understanding how much waste your business is actually producing and the environmental impact of that as well. Because once you've understood that, once you've grasped that, it's so much easier to then be able to implement the controls that your business needs in order to be able to reduce its environmental impact. So of course, this project isn't going to happen without people. So you do need to have leadership commitment initially. That's really important. And also they will act as your project sponsor. But you also need a project leader, so who's actually going to be leading on that project. And we found that those businesses that have got environmental champions in place also drive great momentum and engagement for the environmental management system. So in terms of the project lead and the environmental champions, we have actually got some videos on this over in the ISOlogy Hub, which go through in detail about what their roles and responsibilities are and about the important part that they play in implementing an environmental management system, but also once you've achieved certification as well. So they will continue to champion environmental management best practice. So in our experience, we've found that it can be so valuable having a group of people who are clearly passionate about making a difference when it comes to environmental management. And in an ideal world, having cross-representation across the different functions within your business can really help to move the needle for you as an organisation. So this could be including having an environmental champion from operations, finance, facilities, and possibly office management as well. So each company will have different functions, but it would be really good if you could try and allocate an environmental champion, ask for a volunteer to be an environmental champion. And it doesn't need to take up much of their time either, but it's something that they may be really keen to get involved with. So that's going to help to implement the standard. Now, in terms of finances, I mean, obviously we get asked, how much does it cost to implement ISO 14001? So obviously your time is a cost, but there are different ways in terms of supporting you with implementing the standard. So if we're looking at the creation of the EMS, you can do it yourself. The ISology Hub will help you to do that because that will take you through step by step with clear action plans, templates, tutorials and videos and that sort of thing. Or you may want to get a coach to assist you. Again, we've got an ISO coach program, which is a 6-month program where we have a fortnightly group coaching session and also a fortnightly one-to-one session with your coach. The reason that that's for 6 months is that typically that's how long it takes to implement ISO 14001, but it does vary from company to company, and also it depends on, the size of the organisation, the resources that you've got, etc. But I'm actually going to be recording a podcast on the timeframes and everything that you need to consider when you're planning your EMS in the next episode, so more to come on that. And then of course you might want to engage in the services of a consultancy firm like Blackmores to help you every step of the way and do a lot of the heavy lifting for you, so doing things like delivering your internal audits or chairing certain meetings, so making sure that everything runs smoothly. I think you do need to bear in mind that if you are doing it yourself, you just need to allow potentially extra time for doing that, and also you need to consider whether you're actually going to pass the assessment, because you may come unstuck and then have to go through that again, which obviously you want to try and avoid if possible. But you might also want to consider training courses, and they're from external parties, or again there's all the training that you need in the ISology Hub. But you don't necessarily need to invest in lots of equipment and kit when you're implementing an ISO standard. If you are going for certification, you do need to consider the certification body costs, and again they will vary. But typically you just need to look at time initially and the certification body cost at the end of it. So it can be fairly low cost. Linking that then with infrastructure, so you don't actually need to invest significant amounts of money in changing your work environment. In fact, through implementing an EMS, your aim is to reduce costs associated with your buildings, with your activities, and with the equipment that you use, and also your supply chain. So most of the really impactful ways to reduce your costs are actually no-cost solutions or low-cost solutions. So things like having a switch-off campaign, switching to renewable energy, printing double-sided, or better still, not printing at all and then saving on the cost of paper there as well as the electricity for using printers. So there are so many different low-cost and no-cost options that you can take into consideration that will actually reduce the costs of the overhead finances for the business. Now, some organisations, once they've introduced all their low-cost and no-cost options after certification, they may look at investing in other areas such as LED lighting, solar, or ground source heat pumps. There are lots of different ways, and clearly if you're making the investment, you need to look at what the return on your investment is going to be. There's lots of information on that, and we will be recording a podcast on the ROI when it comes to environmental management in the future. So technology. So again, you don't need fancy systems to implement or manage an environmental management system. A lot of businesses use the current systems that they've already got. So you may already have monitoring devices, building management systems, or software or apps that host your data and your processes. So things like SharePoint or Teams, Microsoft 365. But there are actually some dedicated cloud-based solutions for process mapping and also management system software, which can be really useful too. Now, details of the recommended suppliers will be coming on our resources directory in the next month or so, so we'll provide an update on that in due course. And then finally, in terms of resources, we've obviously covered all of your internal resources, but what about suppliers? So many businesses outsource a lot of their key services. So why not get them doing the work for you in terms of providing the evidence or the MI, the management information that you need in order to be able to create your EMS and manage it? So you may ask your facilities management company, if you have one, for data on meter readings. That could be energy and water, for example. The waste management company that you use or that your building uses, they should be able to provide reports on waste management and segregation. Other companies that you may use could be utilities, organisations, so they'll be able to provide data via bills and also on consumption, and also other aspects such as business travel or other ancillary services. So you could actually look at getting them to provide you with information on their environmental credentials. So that could include being net carbon zero partners. So that's something that's worth considering. So that's hopefully provided you with a bit of an overview on things to consider when planning resources that you may need when you're implementing an EMS. So we've covered time, people, finance, infrastructure, technology, and your suppliers. So I hope that's been helpful for you. If you love this episode and think, yep, I need to implement ISO 14001 but would like a little bit of help, then I'd just like you to know that the Isology Hub is now live. So that's isologyhub.com. So join us to get access to all the support that you need on our online membership. So the Isology Hub really is the go-to place for all things ISO, including video tutorials, check sheets, quick wins, e-learning courses, so everything that you need to create, launch and build your environmental management system for success, plus many other ISO standards. And I hope you've gleaned some useful information from today's episode. And I'd love to hear what your big takeaways were from today and if there's any areas at all that we've covered that may have resonated with you. So I'd love to find out about that. So please do share your comments on the player that you've been listening to today or just drop me a line. And don't forget, if you want to get the full show notes, please do go to the isologyhub.com. And also we have a blog over on the Blackmores site as well. So that's blackmoresuk.com. And if you don't want to miss out on any future episodes, please make sure that you're subscribed on your favourite player, whether that's iTunes or Spotify. And don't forget, once again, that we've got the ISO Standards Blueprint free of charge for you to be able to download and kickstart your EMS. So thanks very much for listening to the ISO show, and I look forward to catching up with you again next week.
Looking to use ISO standards to drive better business practice? Contact us at blackmoresuk.com to access further information and book your free 15-minute call.